Welcome back to Explainified. In our last video, we explored 8 massive what-if scenarios that would have completely changed the Game of Thrones universe. But Westeros is full of pivotal moments where history balanced on the edge of a knife. Today, we're diving into 8 more game-changing what-if scenarios that would have transformed the Seven Kingdoms in ways you might not have considered. I've spent the past month analyzing these alternate timelines, consulting with Game of Thrones experts, and even reviewing George R.R. Martin's interviews to understand how these changes would have rippled through the story. So grab your Valyrian steel, and let's explore the roads not taken in Game of Thrones. What if number 1? What if Robert Baratheon had never been wounded by the boar? Robert Baratheon's death from a hunting accident set the entire Game of Thrones in motion. But what if Lancel Lannister hadn't overserved him wine, or if the boar had missed? A living Robert would have returned to King's Landing to find Ned Stark investigating Jon Arryn's death. With Robert still on the throne, Ned would have revealed Cersei's secret directly to his friend rather than confronting her alone. Robert's legendary fury would have been unleashed on the Lannisters. He already hated them, and this betrayal would have pushed him over the edge. Cersei, Jaime, and their children would have likely been executed or forced to flee to Casterly Rock. Tywin Lannister would have called his banners, potentially starting a war, but without the advantage of having his family in control of King's Landing. Stannis and Renly would never have declared themselves kings, as Robert was still alive. The War of the Five Kings would never have happened, at least not in the same way. Most importantly, with Robert still focused on killing Targaryens, he would have doubled his efforts to assassinate Daenerys once he learned she was pregnant with a Dothraki heir. The entire Targaryen restoration might have been crushed before her dragons ever hatched. One boar's charge, manipulated by Lannister schemes, didn't just kill a king, it unleashed chaos across an entire continent. What if number 2? What if Stannis Baratheon had won the Battle of Blackwater Bay? Stannis Baratheon came within inches of taking King's Landing during the Battle of Blackwater Bay. But what if Tywin Lannister and the Tyrells hadn't arrived in time? King's Landing would have fallen to Stannis' forces. Joffrey, Cersei, and likely most of the Lannister court would have been executed as traitors. Tyrion, having led the defense, would have either been killed or possibly pardoned due to his known conflicts with his family. Stannis, now sitting on the Iron Throne, would have been a completely different ruler than Joffrey or Tommen, rigid, harsh, but fundamentally just. His strict adherence to law would have stabilized the realm, though his lack of charisma would have made him unpopular. The Tyrell alliance with the Lannisters would never have been cemented, leaving Highgarden to either submit to Stannis or join Robb Stark's rebellion. Either way, the power dynamics of Westeros would have been dramatically altered. Most significantly, with Stannis on the throne and Melisandre at his side, the realm might have actually prepared for the White Walker threat years earlier. Stannis was the only contender for the throne who answered the Night's Watch's call for help. As king, he would have had the resources of the entire Seven Kingdoms to face the threat beyond the Wall. One naval battle, turned by wildfire and reinforcements, didn't just save the Lannisters, it potentially doomed Westeros to be unprepared for the true enemy. What if number 3? What if Tywin Lannister had survived? Tywin Lannister's death at the hands of his son Tyrion left a massive power vacuum in Westeros. But what if Tyrion had never pulled that crossbow trigger? Cersei's regency would have remained firmly under Tywin's control. Her worst impulses, arming the Faith Militant, antagonizing the Tyrells, would have been checked by her father's political acumen. The Lannister-Tyrell alliance would have remained strong under his management. Tyrion would have likely been executed for Joffrey's murder or sent to the Wall, completely changing his trajectory and removing him as an advisor to Daenerys Targaryen. Without Tyrion's counsel, Daenerys might have taken a much more aggressive approach to conquering Westeros. Jaime's redemption arc would have continued under the complicated shadow of his father's influence, potentially pulling him back into Lannister loyalty rather than his journey toward honor. Most critically, with Tywin alive, the response to Daenerys' eventual invasion would have been far more coordinated and effective. Tywin would never have allowed the political chaos that Cersei created, instead uniting the realm against the Targaryen threat or negotiating a more favorable settlement. One crossbow bolt fired in a privy didn't just kill the most powerful man in Westeros, it removed the only person truly capable of holding the realm together against outside threats. What if number 4? What if Khal Drogo had never died? Khal Drogo's death from an infected wound fundamentally changed Daenerys' path to power. But what if the wound had healed? Or if Daenerys had never trusted Mirri Maz Duur's blood magic? With Drogo alive, his khalasar would never have abandoned Daenerys. Instead, with his promise to take the Iron Throne for his son, Drogo would have led 40,000 Dothraki screamers across the narrow sea, something no khalasar had ever done before. Daenerys' dragons would still have hatched, assuming the same blood sacrifice occurred another way, but her approach to power would have been completely different. Rather than developing as a ruler in her own right, she would have been the mother of Drogo's heir and the source of his legitimacy in Westeros. The invasion of Westeros would have happened years earlier, potentially during the War of the Five Kings, when the continent was already divided and weakened. No single faction would have been able to stand against a united Dothraki horde supported by dragons. Most importantly, Daenerys would never have freed the Unsullied or liberated Slaver's Bay. Her identity as the Breaker of Chains would never have formed, fundamentally changing her character and approach to conquest and rule. One festering wound didn't just kill a Khal, it transformed a frightened girl into the mother of dragons, and set her on a path to become one of the most powerful forces in the world. What if number 5, what if Sansa had left with the Hound during the Battle of Blackwater? During the chaos of the Battle of Blackwater, Sandor the Hound Clegane offered to take Sansa Stark away from King's Landing. But what if she had accepted his offer? Sansa would have escaped the Lannisters long before her marriage to Tyrion, likely heading north toward her family. She would have avoided the trauma of witnessing her father's allies being systematically destroyed and the psychological torture from Joffrey. The Hound's character arc would have accelerated, with his protection of Sansa solidifying his turn away from violence and toward redemption much earlier. Their relationship would have developed into one of the most complex and interesting dynamics in the series. Without Sansa in King's Landing, the Lannister-Tyrell alliance through her marriage to Tyrion would never have happened. The Tyrells would have had to find another way to cement their position, potentially changing their entire strategy. Most significantly, Littlefinger's plans would have been completely derailed. Without Sansa under his influence, his ability to manipulate events in the Vale and the North would have been severely limited. The entire power structure of the Eastern Kingdoms would have evolved differently. One young woman's decision to stay in a safe castle rather than flee with a scarred warrior didn't just extend her suffering, it allowed Littlefinger to continue playing his game of chaos across half the continent. What if number 6? What if the Red Wedding had failed? The Red Wedding was the most shocking betrayal in the series, decimating House Stark and the Northern cause. But what if something had gone wrong with the Frey-Bolton plan? If Robb Stark had survived the trap, the North's rebellion would have continued, but with a crucial difference. Robb would no longer be bound by honor. The betrayal would have hardened him, potentially transforming him from the honorable son of Ned Stark into a ruthless wartime leader. The Freys and Boltons would have faced the full fury of the North, likely being completely destroyed for their treachery. No Northern house would ever have trusted them again, even if they had survived. The Lannisters would have lost their easy victory, forcing Tywin to commit to a longer, more costly war. This might have weakened their position against other threats, like Stannis Baratheon or Daenerys Targaryen. Most importantly, with the Stark cause still alive, the North would never have fallen into the hands of the Boltons. Winterfell would not have been held by Ramsay, sparing countless Northern lives and preventing the torture of many characters, including Theon and Sansa. One wedding massacre didn't just kill a king and his mother, it broke the North's spirit and allowed sadists and traitors to rule where Starks had governed for thousands of years. What if number 7? What if Joffrey hadn't executed Ned Stark? Joffrey's impulsive decision to execute Ned Stark rather than allow him to take the Black ignited the War of the Five Kings. But what if he had followed his mother's counsel? Ned Stark would have joined Jon Snow at the Wall, bringing his leadership and honor to the Night's Watch at a crucial time. His presence would have completely changed Jon's experience, potentially even preventing his murder by mutineers. Robb Stark would never have been proclaimed king in the North, as his father would still be alive. The Northern Rebellion might have taken a different form, or possibly not happened at all, with Ned counseling patience from the Wall. Catelyn would never have released Jaime Lannister in a desperate bid to recover her daughters, keeping a valuable hostage in Northern hands and preventing many subsequent events. Most critically, with Ned alive at the Wall, the warnings about the White Walker threat would have carried the weight of his reputation. The realm might have taken the danger seriously years earlier, potentially uniting against the true enemy instead of fighting amongst themselves. One boy king's cruel whim didn't just kill a lord. It shattered any hope for peace and set the stage for years of devastating war across the Seven Kingdoms. What if number 8? What if Daenerys had attacked King's Landing immediately upon arriving in Westeros? When Daenerys finally reached Westeros, Tyrion convinced her not to attack King's Landing directly. But what if she had ignored his advice? King's Landing would have fallen quickly to 3 full-grown dragons and Daenerys' combined forces. Cersei would have been removed from power before she could consolidate her position or prepare any defenses against dragons. The civilian casualties would have been significant, but nowhere near the complete destruction that eventually occurred. Daenerys would have been viewed as a conqueror, but not necessarily a mad queen. Without the drawn-out campaign, Daenerys would never have lost 2 of her dragons or much of her army fighting in the north. Her position would have been much stronger when the White Walker threat emerged. Most importantly, with a quick victory in the south, Daenerys could have turned her full attention and resources to the threat beyond the wall much earlier. The combined might of her forces, 3 dragons, and the knowledge of dragonglass could have potentially defeated the Night King before he ever breached the wall. One strategic decision, to take a slower, less violent approach to conquest, didn't just prolong the war. It ultimately led to far greater destruction and Daenerys' own downfall. These what-if scenarios reveal just how intricately balanced the world of Game of Thrones truly was. Every decision, every death, every betrayal sent ripples through the story that fundamentally altered its course. That's what made the series so compelling. The constant sense that everything could change in an instant, just as it often does in real life. If you enjoyed this second look at Game of Thrones' greatest what-if moments, hit that like button and subscribe to Explainified for more deep dives into your favorite shows. Let me know in the comments which of these alternate timelines you think would have been most interesting to see play out, or if there's another what-if you think deserves attention. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.